Welcome back, Sabbath fans. Kicking it off with number 20. Here we go. Coming in at number 20, another Black Sabbath epic. And guys, to be honest with you, I really had to flip a coin to decide between this and the last song. That's right. It's Megalomania, also from Sabotage. And honestly, when it came down to this or the Writ, I honestly couldn't decide. For the longest time, I would have said the Writ, hands down. But just recently, like within the past year or so, Megalomania has just really been growing on me. And like I find myself listening to it more and more, even more than the Writ. So I kind of like pushed it above the Writ, but for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much equal. But yeah, Megalomania is just, oh my god, it's such an epic song. I mean, the way it starts with that ominous guitar kind of takes you back to the early days of Sabbath, the spine chilling feeling you get when you listen to it. And then the majority of the song is driven by this chugging riff, and it just powers you through the entire song. And then Ozzy's vocals are as intense as ever. I mean, I think Sabotage has his most intense vocals. I mean, when you hear this in the Writ, this guy's screaming his ass off. Like he's giving it his all. It's literally one of his greatest performances. Not to mention the outro of the song, which is one of my absolute favorite Black Sabbath outros, right up there with Wheels of Confusion. Oh my god, just the way that Mellotron in the background just swells up. Oh, just makes the hairs on your neck just instantly stand up. And I'm a huge progressive rock fan, so whenever I hear Mellotron, I don't know, I think that's just a built-in reflex I have. Whenever I hear Mellotron, the hairs on my neck just stand up. I can't even help it. But yeah, so Megalomania, definitely one of the best Sabbath epics. But don't worry, there's a few more to come. Okay, guys, the moment has finally arrived. If you've been following this list carefully, you will notice the omission of one Black Sabbath album. That's right, it's the debut album. And coming in at number 19 is Wicked World, one of the classic Black Sabbath songs. And guys, I have a confession to make. Black Sabbath's debut album is by far my favorite Black Sabbath album. Well, a lot of them come close, like definitely Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, definitely Master of Reality, Heaven and Hell even. But the first album will always be my favorite. And that's for many reasons. Historical significance plays a role in that because, as we all know, it was the first full-blown heavy metal album. But really, it's just a personal connection I have with this album. I mean, this was the first one I owned, and I bought this album when I was really getting into hard rock, really getting into progressive rock, all that shit. And I was pretty young, maybe like 11 or 12 years old. And it was a really impressionable age. And just hearing that album for the first time blew my fucking mind. I mean, if you go back on my channel, I reviewed this album in 2012. And my thoughts on it are exactly the same as what I expressed in that video. I mean, oh man, I remember it to this day. I was going to HMV, which is a music store in Ontario, and I was starting off my music collection with my favorite band, Led Zeppelin, and only 5 Led Zeppelin albums were available that day, so it was an odd number, and they always had specials like 2 albums for 10, 2 albums for 20, something like that. So I'm like, oh okay, what else should I get? And my dad's like, Rocky, you got to get Black Sabbath, the debut album. It's one of the best albums of all time. And oh boy, was he ever fucking right. I mean, I got this album, I looked at the cover, and to be honest, it scared the shit out of me then, and it scares the shit out of me now. I mean, that album cover with that lone figure and the mystique behind it. I mean, to this day, they still haven't figured out who that person was. It's a complete mystery. There's just so much mystique behind it. And it's definitely like in my top 5 favorite album covers of all time. Oh man, and then I put it on the CD player and it opened up with that title track, and it was just unlike anything I've ever heard before in my life. And to this day it still hasn't gotten old. I mean, I listen to this album regularly. And I mean regularly since since when did I buy this? 2006? Yeah, I think since 2006 I've been listening to this album religiously. That's fucking 13 years. Oh my god. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. It's just one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums, and Wicked World just really showcases the jazzy feel that Black Sabbath had when they were starting out. I mean, there's just so much swing to this song, and that part in the middle with that Tony Iommi, I guess you can call it a guitar solo, it's just so emotional, so spine-chilling. It feels like I'm alone in the woods, someone's someone's after me, like an evil witch or something. It's just it's insane. It's just insane. And I think at the end of the day, that's why I love this album so much. It just flawlessly incorporates blues, jazz, and single-handedly gave birth to the heavy metal genre all in one album. It's unlike anything you've ever heard. And I mentioned this earlier on in the list, but Ozzy's vocals, although I do consider the peak of his vocal prowess to be Sabotage, my favorite Ozzy vocals are on the first album. I mean, when he's singing on this album, it sounds like he's singing from like the pits of his guts. I mean, he's singing with so much bravado, so much power. And honestly, it's my favorite Ozzy performance is on the first Black Sabbath album. And Wicked World, although it's my least favorite song on the album, it's still one of their best fucking songs. So yeah, onward with the list, but the debut is finally making an appearance. All right, guys, coming in at number 18, and this will be no surprise to anyone. This song is just, it's a no-brainer. In fact, I think people might think it should be even higher up on the list, but it's going to be Symptom of the Universe from Sabotage. And honestly, this song is just a no-brainer. I mean, people say that this song single-handedly created thrash metal. And although that might be a little controversial, I could definitely see why, with that just incredible riff at the beginning that just chugs along, and Ozzy's just intense vocals, which is pretty much obligatory at this point, considering it's on Sabotage, where his vocals were just cranked up to 11 for some reason. Oh man, it's just one of the greatest Black Sabbath songs, hands down. No one's going to debate this one. And not to mention that insane transition at the end of the song where the whole song just completely shifts in feel and thematically into this acoustic section. And I mean, okay, the first time I heard this song, this section definitely took me by surprise, as I'm sure it took everybody by surprise. And I'm sure hardcore metal fans consider this part to be strange, weird, unnecessary. But as a diehard progressive rock fan, this just made me so happy when I heard it for the first time. And unlike the first album, I got into Sabotage pretty late into my Black Sabbath listening career. I mean, probably about 4 years ago now, whereas I've been listening to the early Black Sabbath album since 2006. And I was just into so much progressive rock at that time that this song really had an impact on me. It really proved that Black Sabbath were moving into experimental territory. Or, well, they had moved into experimental territory, but this was full-blown, just progressive metal at its finest. And that acoustic section to this day is one of my favorite moments in Black Sabbath's entire discography. All right, guys, number 16, and I'm sure this is another no-brainer, but it's going to be Fairies Wear Boots from Paranoid. This is definitely one of their classic, just essential songs that everyone has heard at this point. And I can't imagine a Black Sabbath fan not loving this song, not putting it this high on the list, if not higher. But it's just such a classic song. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I heard this song. The intro alone just grabs you by the balls, how it builds up, and the impending sense of doom you feel when you first hear it is just, it's unmatched. It's really unmatched. Not to mention the incredible riffs just throughout the entire song, especially the one that goes, I mean, it's just the definition of sludge metal. I love that riff. Honestly, I could listen to that riff all day long. Not to mention the outro is incredible with that fade out. Just a perfect way to end the album. And although the lyrics might be a little weird, a little corny, I think they're about skinheads Ozzy was seeing one day. He was like trying to make fun of them. Because, fairies is kind of like a colloquial term for like homosexuals, basically. But irregardless of the stupid lyrics, it's definitely musically one of Black Sabbath's best songs, and definitely an essential one. So check it out. All right, coming in at number 16 is Sabracadabra from Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And at first, I would have never have thought I would have put this song above Symptom of the Universe. But then the more and more I listened to it, the more and more it grew on me. And this song is just, it's hard to explain why I love this song so much. I think what it really comes down to is the keyboard playing, courtesy of Rick Wakeman, from one of my favorite bands of all time, the classic band, Yes. And Rick Wakeman, he's definitely one of the greatest keyboard players of all time. And he just adds this amazing touch to this song. It's just so groovy, so fantastic. And just the way the whole song progresses is just, oh my god, it's just unlike any other Black Sabbath song. And like on the surface, it just seems like a simple love song, which is pretty much what it is lyrically, but musically, it's so much more, courtesy of the master Rick Wakeman. Definitely one of my personal favorite Sabbath songs. I know a lot of fans might not put it this high, but I just can't deny how much I love it. So that's Sabracadabra. All right, guys, we're in the final stretch here, and coming in at number 15, we have the masterpiece, Hand of Doom off Paranoid. This song here just hits really close to home. I mean, the music itself is fantastic. That goes without saying. I mean, this is considered one of Black Sabbath's greatest achievements. But what really propels it to this level on the list is the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics hit so close to home. They're about soldiers coming back from the Vietnam War, being, so depressed, having PTSD, having anxiety, all kinds of mental problems. And the only solace they would find would be shooting up on heroin and all kinds of other drugs. And Geezer Butler was inspired because they attended a gig where that was heavily attended by U.S. Vietnam veterans, and he saw firsthand just how they were just completely fucking up their lives coming back from Vietnam, shooting up on all these drugs. And at the time there were all kinds of Vietnam protest songs, like Fortunate Son by CCR, Buffalo Springfield songs, even Neil Young, things like that. And but nothing is personal and so close to the experience of the veterans themselves as this song here. And that's what made Black Sabbath so great. Geezer Butler, he would, at a time where hippie tendencies were full swing, progressive rock was popular at the time. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge progressive rock fan. But they were, singing about things like, fantasy and all kinds of crap like that. And here we have a band just looking at the real problems with the world and not beating around the bush, really writing fantastic lyrics that address the issues at hand. And Geezer Butler is definitely one of the, his lyrics are definitely a highlight of the early Sabbath catalog. And Hand of Doom just really highlights his contribution lyrically because it just really hits close to home. And the music's fantastic. I mean, just the way it starts off, just so melancholic. The way Ozzy's singing, it feels like he's on the verge of suicide. And then all of a sudden, the song builds up into this rapture with that crushing riff. The definitely one of the heaviest moments from the early Sabbath catalog, and just a masterpiece. That's Hand of Doom. Number 14, another song about drugs. We got Sweet Leaf off Master of Reality. That's fucking right. I put this song this high, and I don't give a shit. This is one of the greatest Black Sabbath songs of all time, and it just defines. You know what? When I think of Black Sabbath, this is one of the first songs that comes to mind, just because of how doomy and, oh my god, just how sludgy that riff is. They single-handedly define doom metal and stoner metal with this song. And I don't even know if stoner metal is a genre, but if it is, this is the defining song. It's such a classic, guys. Honestly, what can I say about Sweet Leaf? It's just one of the most iconic Sabbath songs. And I mean, the riff alone, the vocals, just everything about it, the whole atmosphere of the song are fantastic. But then it gets into these crazy like time signatures near the end of the song, and this crazy drumming by Bill Ward, not to mention the insane bass work by Geezer Butler throughout the whole song. And you know what? Throughout the entire Master of Reality album, Geezer Butler is just on another level. I mean, his playing is beyond fantastic. Just one of the craziest and best Sabbath songs. Like, there's not much more to say about it. Sweet Leaf. All right, guys, number 13, 12, and 11 are extremely close. You know what? Let's just say these three songs, consider them equal. Rearrange them in whatever order pleases you. I don't give a fuck. They're for all intents and purposes are equal, and I consider them the holy trinity of Well, we'll get into that soon. But anyway, number 13, it's going to be Lord of This World from Master of Reality. And you know what? I don't think this song is really considered one of their best songs. I haven't seen it very high on many lists, but for me, it's an absolute no brainer. This is definitely one of their greatest achievements. Honestly, like just listening to that bass, listening to that riff that just plods along in such a menacing and ominous manner, coupled with Geezer Butler's fantastic lyrics that just fit the theme of the entire album. You know, I consider Master of Reality to be a concept album because every single song on the album, maybe with like a few exceptions here and there, are about the downfall of mankind. I mean, think about it. Children of the Grave, that's obvious. We'll get into that later. Into the Void, this song here, I guess Solitude, it's about like depression, things like that. It's just their darkest album, and it's about the downfall of mankind, and just some of the lyrics on this song hit me really hard. When Geezer Butler is saying, "Oh, who's your confessor now?" It's like when you're confessing your sins, you're not even confessing to God anymore because he's like left this world long ago. You're confessing to Satan when he's talking about the soul that Satan took from you was not even missed. Just things like that are just really powerful. And Geezer Butler's lyrics and bass playing are just ridiculously amazing on this song. There's a lot of time signature changes. It's just one of their epics. Definitely one of their best songs. So check out Lord of This World. Give it another listen if you don't really consider it one of their best, but it definitely is for me. All right, guys, coming in at number 12. Oh, man, it kills me that this song didn't crack the top 10. I thought it definitely would, but things just didn't work out that way. But nonetheless, it's going to be another song for Master of Reality. This time, it's the closing epic, Into the Void. What's there to say about this song? I honestly think everyone knows how fantastic this song is. The riff just goes without saying that this is probably one of the best, if not the best, Tony Iommi riffs of all time. A lot of them come close, but you know what? This may be the best Tony Iommi riff. Like you can't argue with it. It's just so sexy. Just the way it. Oh man, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like probably the filthiest, sexiest riff I've ever heard in my life, and the bass playing in the background is just full blast. I love how like from the very inception of metal, they understood how important the bass sound would be. Like you hear metal today, and sometimes like you can barely hear the bass, and it's kind of like what the hell? It sounds so thin. I love how Black Sabbath, the first metal band of all time, got that shit right. Lyrically, it fits in perfectly with the theme of Master of Reality. It's about people, like that mankind has basically destroyed the earth and now they're trying to escape to find another planet, presumably to pollute and destroy, just like they did our society and our world. And just the emotionless tone in Ozzy Osbourne's voice, it's just a perfect fit for this song. You could tell, like, this is a race that's just fucked itself in the ass so many times, and it's just about to give up hope. It's just, oh my god, it's amazing. And there's this one part in the song that just gets me every single time. It's like this sustain in Tony Iommi's guitar playing that just precedes the main guitar solo. Oh my god, it's just incredible song. And it shames me that it's not in the top 10, but it made it pretty close. Coming in at number 11, rounding out the holy trinity of the Master of Reality album, we have the fan favorite, Children of the Grave. This song is a fan favorite for a definite reason. I mean, just like the two songs I just mentioned for Master of Reality, the riffs are absolutely the peak of Tony Iommi. I mean, on Master of Reality, he started down tuning his guitars. Although a lot of fans think like he started doing it on the first album, he actually started down tuning the guitars on the third album and using like heavier gauge strings, all that shit, just giving him the most distinctive sound in hard rock at the time. No one was producing riffs like Tony Iommi in 1971. Absolutely no one. I mean, his riffs were just something else. The heaviness was out of this world, and Children of the Grave is one of his most iconic riffs. The entire song just fits in so well with the theme of the album. It's about nuclear holocaust. And again, I consider these three songs to be roughly equal. That being "Children of the Grave," "Into the Void," and "Lord of this World." Lyrically, I think "Lord of this World" is probably the strongest of the bunch, but musically, they're all the same. And "Children of the Grave" does have that that swagger behind it. It's a fan favorite. I saw it live, so it's kind of actually I saw "Into the Void" live as well. But I remember the crowd was just going wild on "Children of the Grave," so I just have better memories associated with it. So that's why it beat the other two. But yeah, definitely one of the Sabbath master works. Thanks for keeping up with the list so far, guys. Coming up in the next video, we round out the top 10.